The New York Jets win a must-win game over the Denver Broncos, and I guarantee you it gave lots of Jet fans heart palpitations, as the New York Jets certainly did not make it easy, but they end up winning this game in an impressive fashion. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and we have a lot to talk about: the good, the bad about the New York Jets. But I wanted to start off a little bit differently because, again, you guys, you know I love you. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, give us a like. But let us start off with the most important aspect of this game, which was Nathaniel Hackett. Because we heard it on Hard Knocks, and we heard Sean Payton before the season calling out Nathaniel Hackett. Quote, from Sean Payton before the season on Nathaniel Hackett: it might have been one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL. That wasn't Russell's fault. That's an incrimination of the head coach. They were 29th in the league in pre-snap penalties on both sides of the ball. Everything I heard about last season, we're doing the opposite. Well, here's a news flash for you, Sean. Nathaniel Hackett just rolled up into Denver and beat you. Oh, by the way, with the Jets' backup quarterback at home. And Denver, you know what? You said you were the 29th most penalized team. You know what's a fun fact? Denver's the most penalized team in the NFL this season. There is an awful lot to talk about in this game going forward, what this means for the Jets, Zach Wilson's performance. Breece Hall, the beast, is unleashed. And I met a lot of Jet fans like me. What took so long for the Jets to realize how good Breece Hall is? 22 carries, 177 yards, and, of course, a massive 72-yard touchdown in this game. A lot to talk about on the inactives before this game. I have a lot on that. But I do want to start with something a bit breaking, which has a little bit more concern. Robert Saleh was just in the press conference asked about AVT, saying the calf will be evaluated this week, and said it is a concern. And for Robert Saleh, who usually waxes very poetic and errs on the side of everything's going to be okay with injuries, this is a major concern, because I still contend that AVT is by far the Jets' best offensive lineman. I think at the point, oh, I love Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner just tweeted 2 minutes ago, Jets country, let's ride. Oh, wow. So that is great. I freaking love Sauce. Zach Wilson in this game, 19 of 26, 199 yards, 0 TDs in the interception. A lot to talk about there, but this was a game where you saw a lot, and we will get to your comments in just a minute. But to me, AVT is a huge concern. To me, it's the biggest one. Some good news is Saleh did express in the post-game conference that Tippmann is fine. He could have gone back in there if needed. So at the very least, worst case scenario, if somehow AVT is out, I'm hoping it's short term. Again, if it's 2 or 3 weeks, I don't think that's the end of the world for the Jets, especially with the bye coming up, just as long as it's not a season-ending injury. But, man, if I'm the Jets, I'm petitioning never to play in Denver again, because Denver, for whatever reason, the last 2 years, despite the Jets getting win, it's been a house of horrors for injuries. AVT, both years there. You have the injuries to Becton. Becton seems to be fine. But I will say Max Mitchell, I give a lot of credit to, and I think a lot of Jet fans have overlooked Max Mitchell. I liked what he did a lot last year. I think he could be a future starting tackle for this team. I thought he filled in very well for AVT when he had to come in. If he has to start a couple games and give AVT 2 or 3 weeks off, I don't have a problem, but we will keep that up to date for you as well. Joe Tippmann, of course, had another very good game. There's a lot to talk about here. I want to get into Zach Wilson. I want to talk about that as well. I thought Nathaniel Hackett had a very good game plan today. There's some concerns I have about the Jets, and I will get into that in just a bit. But going forward, I think that this is a good gauge for this team, because if you're new to the channel, I've been talking about this for weeks. And if you're a frequent subscriber, I apologize. But just for some of the new viewers, I'll be brief. One of the things I've been beating the last couple of weeks on this channel is the New York Jets have to go in the bye 2-4. Even with Aaron Rodgers said this team could go with the bye 2-4. When you look at the back half of this team's schedule, it's a lot easier for this team. And especially with Zach Wilson, when you looked at having to go through Kansas City, Philadelphia, all these really good teams, I think that's what the frustration was with the Patriot loss and especially the Chiefs loss, is if somehow the Jets couldn't pull this out against the Broncos, that they could be looking down the barrel of a 1-5 start. If the Jets lose to Philadelphia, who's a very good team, but if the Jets go into the bye at 2-4 and come out facing the Giants, who I think are a very beatable team for the Jets, if the Jets can get to the trade deadline at 3-4, I think that they'll be in a fine position to compete for a wild card. Maybe they can trade for a piece at that trade deadline. Maybe they can add a piece to the offensive line for a selling team. But one thing that also comes into this as well is something very interesting, which was Carl Lawson and Mecole Hardman were inactive today. Personally, I was surprised by Hardman, but the Jets made the decision. His replacement made a big play on special teams. And Carl Lawson, look, I thought Will McDonald had a good spin move at the end of the game. I thought Jermaine Johnson had one of his best games as a Jet. It's clear that Jermaine, Bryce Huff, and even Will McDonald have passed Carl Lawson. And I do think it's seriously time for the Jets to start thinking about moving some of these pieces for both the short and long term. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get an offensive lineman back for a Carl Lawson or a Mecole Hardman, but maybe there's a receiver out there that the Jets think is a better fit for this offense, because I'm looking at this offense right now. And yes, Gibson has been really nice. He's been a nice surprise for this team, and I love the playmaking ability. But I look at this team right now, and especially considering that this team does not have a second-round pick next year in the draft, if I'm the Jets, I'm making calls around. Because to me, Bryce Hall is another guy. If Brandon Echols comes back and they feel Echols is better than Bryce Hall, I thought Hall had a great game today. I think he's showing that he's still an NFL caliber corner. He can maybe be a piece, but in the meantime, wait until everyone gets healthy. But if I'm the Jets today, I'm trying to make some phone calls and seeing if I could get either a pick or I can get a player that fills a need on this team. Like, is there a safety that they can maybe like and add to the safety group? Because the safety play today I didn't think was great. I thought Adams had a lot of missed tackles today. Is there a linebacker they could add with speed? Is there another tight end that they could have? So I look at the Jets right now, and if I'm the Jets, I'm trying to trade Carl Lawson and Mecole Hardman. Even if it's not this week, I'm trying to trade them by the deadline. Because the restructuring the Carl Lawson deal also hurts the Jets because they have dead cap against them next year. Where at the time I didn't hate the deal because they were keeping him around, but at the same time the Jets could have moved off from Carl Lawson without a major cap penalty. Mecole Hardman, it's clear that the Jets, for whatever reason, I'm not sure if it's fit. I'm not sure if it's him running routes. I'm not sure if it's just not clicking with this offense. But there's something with Mecole Hardman where he's played 22 snaps and now all of a sudden he's inactive, where the Jets are playing Gibson over him. They're playing other people over him. There's something about Mecole Hardman that doesn't really mesh with this coaching staff. And I can guarantee you there's going to be a team out there that needs a Carl Lawson, that needs a Mecole Hardman. You probably won't get a lot for them, but there is a team out there that needs a pass rusher and that needs also at the same time, they're going to need a wide receiver. And if I'm the Jets, I would go out there and try to figure out how to do that. Like, it doesn't make sense when you have these talented players on your roster that aren't playing. Look, if I had to be honest, I don't want Carl Lawson playing. I'd rather have Will McDonald out there. I'd rather have Bryce Huff out there. I'd rather have Jermaine Johnson out there. And look, as much as I've been screaming, give Mecole Hardman an opportunity, Gibson's been making plays for this team. They've been able to find a way to win without him. So if I'm the Jets, and considering you're having Aaron Rodgers coming back, luckily you're getting a first-round pick because of the trade negotiations, which was Rodgers had to play 65% of the snaps. That first becomes a second. Now, technically, it's not official, but we know the Jets are going to keep their first-round pick. That means they're going to have to give up their second round pick to the Green Bay Packers. I'm not saying you're going to get a second round pick for McCole Hardman. I'm not saying you're going to get a second round pick for Carl Lawson. But is there a team out there that could give you a third, that could give you a fourth, or could give you a third day pick and an extra player? I would be exploring those trade markets as much as possible. And before I get into your questions, I see you guys are in the chat. I'll get to you in just a second. I want to get into Zach Wilson. I didn't think Zach had a bad game. Do I think Zach could have played better? Do I think the Jets could have had a little bit better game plan? Yes. I didn't think the offensive line, especially early, was great. I think they finally got in their groove when they were running the football. My biggest concerns with Zach and Nathaniel Hackett have to be the red zone, because the fact that the Jets were in the red zone multiple times and just came away with field goals. Again, it's great that they won this game, but this team wants to turn a corner. The two biggest concerns I take out of this game is, number one, the inability to score in the red zone, because the Jets are moving the football, and this was one of the worst teams in the red zone on defense in the Broncos this entire season. The Jets could not come away with points. They have to figure out how to get points in that situation, whether it's designing runs for Zach, whether it's designing a trick play. They have to figure out how to get points. And the other thing about this defense, as good as it was to see that turnover at the end of the game from Quincy, and again, Quincy's playing at an all-pro level. That probably is one of the best signings the Jets have had. And watching Breece Hall score was absolutely phenomenal. But when you watch this whole game, this defense is, I said it last week, I am not calling this a championship caliber defense until proven otherwise. I'm not even calling this an elite defense. I'm going to say this is a very, very good defense, because great defenses don't allow an offense to go down the field to start the game. Think about it. Cowboys game, go right down the field for 7. Chiefs game, go right down the field for 7. This game, Broncos, go right down the field for 7. Look, they did a lot of great things. The safety was great. The turnover at the end of the game was great. But the thing that I think was most frustrating was this team had its moment. It had its moment in front of it to prove that this Jet defense is one of the elite in the NFL, where they could have taken a bad offense and ended this game. The Jets are up 21-13. Broncos have the ball. That was the drive for this Jet defense to say, hey, you know what? We haven't allowed, one net passing yard to that point in the second half. We are going to shut out the Broncos and finish this freaking game right now. What happened? Broncos go right down the field. The Bryce Huff tic-tac call I didn't love, but they're going to call it. They go right down the field, score. Then you have a defensive holding that leads to another opportunity. The Broncos punch it in for 2. Jets offense gets it back. Zach, of course, that 50-50 ball. I know people are going to kill Zach. It wasn't a great ball placement. I thought personally that Garrett was held a bit on that play, but the Jets defense, again, they came up with the play at the end of the game to finish it, but I'm still looking at it as like they had an opportunity earlier to just get out of this game, and they didn't do it. But there's a lot to talk about. I'm just going to check really quickly to see this, and I know a lot of Jet fans I'm seeing on Twitter never play AVT against the Broncos there again. And look, Robert Saleh and Breece Hall, he's pretty good, isn't he? Yeah. This is the thing, too. It's like the Jets fans were screaming all the last couple games, give Breece Hall the ball. And finally, they give him the ball, and you look what happens. Over 170 yards rushing. But look, I think the biggest thing is AVT's injury might not be good. My biggest thing is just don't be out for the season. If you have to be out for a couple weeks, I think that you can patch it with Max Mitchell just fine. I think Max Mitchell is certainly capable. I just look at it as it's just, again, a house of horrors with the freaking injuries there. But look, Breece Hall had an unbelievable game. Zach, not great. Didn't love the turnover, but was efficient. I would like to see a little bit more from him, but I still think you feel like he's the best option for this team at this point. And the biggest thing is this buys the Jets time, because I've been saying they need to be 2-4 the bye, realistically 3-4 by the trade deadline. Just be around 500. Like, this team is trying to just get a wild card. Just be around 500. Even if this team is 6-6 going down the stretch, just give yourself an opportunity to get into the postseason. Like, don't get behind the eight ball. If you fell to 1-4, you saw the odds today. 2-4, you have over 22% to get in the playoffs. 1-4, 6%. So a huge win for this team, a huge win for Robert Saleh, a huge win for, of course, Nathaniel Hackett. Over 40 comments right now. Let's get into it. Charles DeComo, love you too, Charles. Appreciate the comment as always. Thank you so much for joining us as always. Coaching was horrible from Jacob Klein. Yeah, speaking of the coaching too, like, I'll get to it too. Like, I put more on the coaching in that situation before the half. Again, if the Jets lost this game, become big where the Jets ran out the clock. Because my opinion is, yes, Zach should have gotten them back to the line faster. I put it 70-30, 30% on Zach, 70% on the coaching, because there's 15 seconds. Don't call a play that could potentially run out the clock. Like, take a shot at the end zone or take a shot realistically at the sideline. I put it more on the coaching. But look, coaching got out of this this coaching to me, I think Nathaniel Hackett has proven again. I didn't love the red zone today, but he's adjusted the game plan. He's been able to get Zach Wilson to a point where he's at least serviceable, which is saying something. I mean, to me, it's more on Robert Saleh. And look, Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh have been maddening because we see stretches from this defense where they do look like an elite defense. But then there's times where it's like, okay, this is where the defense needs to step up, and they just can't do it. Eric, this is a great question. Like, I don't get, it's the NFL schedule makers. Like, I get the fact that playing Denver because they were a fourth place team. The Jets are a fourth place team. I get that aspect, but why? I don't get why it's not MetLife. I don't. Like, I get maybe 2 years in a row, but it seems a little bit ridiculous that the Jets had to go out there 3 times in a row. I don't get it, Eric. I really don't. And I see a lot of comments about the coaching as well. Ryan Leaf Jr. was bad. Jacob Klein. I mean, I like the relationship there. Robert Saleh, I have major concerns. 2-4 season is over. Jacob, I don't necessarily agree with that, just because I look at the Jets' schedule in the second half. Again, they still have to play Miami twice. Sorry about that as I hit the microphone. Of course, just hopefully I didn't shatter anyone's eardrums, especially if they're living on the headphones. So if I did do that, my apologies if I happen to do that, just trying to reach for the schedule. But look, I mean, they play the Giants on the road technically. They play the Chargers at home. They play at the Bills, so I think they match up well. Dolphins, but look, they play the Falcons, who I think are beatable. Texans, who are beatable. Commanders, who I think are beatable. Browns, who I think are beatable. The freaking Patriots, who they have to freaking beat for once. But look, I think there's more winnable games in the second half than the first half for this Jet team. I really do. Let's see. I don't see them beating Philly. But again, like that was the thing. I didn't see him beating Philly. That's why I said be 2-4, be 3-4 by the trade deadline through week 8. And I think this team has a shot to compete in the playoffs. Saleh has coaching problems. George, can you just elaborate? Are you talking Saleh in general? Or are you talking about his assistants? Just so I know. He needs to start yelling at Zach and his players. It's funny. Like, I didn't love things from Robert, but I love how the Jets win and still the head coach gets it. No, it wouldn't be Schweitzer because, again, he's not playing guard. Tippett's playing guard. Mitchell would be up. And look, Schweitzer isn't bad, but I like Mitchell. I think Mitchell can be a starting tackle in this league, and I thought he filled in very well. I'd rather have Mitchell than Turner. And look, it's a downgrade, but I think Mitchell can be a starting tackle and a future starting tackle for this team. And I thought he filled in well today. I really like Max Mitchell, maybe more than other people. What does Zach do other than F up field goal in the second half? F up field goal. Yeah, at the end of the game, look, again, he moved the football, had the big conversion to keep that drive going. again, efficient with the football, 19 to 26, 199 yards. He made enough plays. Look, if he doesn't make enough plays in this game, the Jets don't win. Was he great? No, but he did enough to win the football game. That game would have been lost. You see, solid choking defense saved him. Look, the defense made a play. And look, I do think that there's still a lot of questions. And I get from Keuka, I think I'm saying this right, Keuka Lake Jet fan. If I say it, apologize if I got the name wrong. Yeah, I think that if you come out of this game, there's a lot from this coaching staff that's left to be desired. I do see what a lot of people are saying. They ended up winning the game. I still think Nathaniel Hackett has at least adjusted the offense, has put enough around the offense to get Zach Wilson functional. Now, again, they need to be more effective in the red zone. I want to see better coaching from this team, but it wasn't enough to win. This is a bad team that they were able to win against. Long term, though, I do think there's going to be questions about Saleh. It's unfortunate because this coaching staff's in a tough spot because the quarterback they envision having isn't there. And I do think this coaching staff looks back and says if they had Aaron Rodgers against the Patriots, that's probably a win. The way they played against the Chiefs, they have Aaron Rodgers, maybe they win that game. There's a chance that the Jets with Aaron Rodgers at this point could be a 4-1 football team, at the very least a 3-2 football team. So the fact that they're here with Zach Wilson says a lot of where they are. Sal says coaches to play good enough. We got to start faster and stop being conservative. Look, the Jets, that's one thing I hated about this game plan a little bit too, was they kind of reverted back to what I didn't like, which was a lot of dives up the middle, just being really conservative in the run game. They have to, and I know Jet fans don't want to hear this, some of them especially, but they have to put the ball in Zach's hands. And I know that's a frightening possibility, but you saw it last week where he started to gain confidence in himself. And this week it kind of felt a little bit the opposite almost, where they talked all week about how much improvement Zach's shown and how much progression he's shown. But in this game, it felt like they coached scared. They didn't want to take shots. And can we, for the love of God, use a play action? Some of the biggest plays here have been a play action. You have Breece Hall running all over people. Can we try a play action with Breece Hall on a first down one time for a big play, especially if this defense forces a turnover? I mean, come on. I get that they're starting to trust Zach more, but there's still this feeling, I think, from this coaching staff among this fan base that they're afraid of it. I would like them to be more aggressive on fourth down twos, Jacob. I can't really disagree with you on there. Yeah, look, they got to open it up too. But again, Breece Hall broke off a couple plays. And speaking of offense, and we talked about the inactives, Hardman and Lawson earlier. If Izzy's healthy, Izzy needs to be playing because Izzy in the preseason showed burst. He showed explosiveness. Michael Carter is limited. And now, to be fair, Dalvin Cook had a better game today than he's been having. But I'm sorry. I'm getting sick and tired of Dalvin Cook. I mean, 6 carries, 3.8 yards, 23. I mean, he had a nice 9-yard run. But Michael Carter had 1 touch today for 8 yards. Breece Hall is averaging 8 yards. Can we give Michael Carter more carries? Can we give Izzy a couple of touches? Because, look, Dalvin Cook to me looks shot. Dalvin Cook, and I know Saleh, and this is one of the critiques I will say about Saleh. It's a good thing to be a player's coach until you're a little too much on the players. And I think he gives players a little bit too much rope in their performance. Because I'm watching Cook, and I'm like, he's not hitting the hole. He's not breaking off a big run. Again, Izzy, they drafted this kid because he was a home run hitter. This was someone that had the record in the FBS last year for most touchdowns per touch, had the most touchdowns over 20 yards. You had that guy potentially in your backfield with Breece Hall. Can we give those guys an opportunity to make some freaking plays, especially if you're not going to give Mecole Hardman the ball? I get that. And look, I think Saleh's left a lot to be desired. And it's hard. But the one thing is hard is if Saleh had Rodgers this year, I think it'd be easier to judge him as a head coach. It's tough when, again, they're stuck with Zach Wilson and they're playing their backup quarterback. Yeah, more field goals. I mean, God, if you need a kicker, get Greg Zuerlein in fantasy, man. Look, it's a win. They needed the winning guy. It was pretty, but even best teams get ugly wins and lucky wins. Look, a win's a win. They had to win this game. They took care of business. They had to win this game, and they took care of the business, which, again, I give them a lot of credit for. I'm going to try to – I'm sorry if giving some of the comments. I'm just trying to catch up because I'm a little bit behind. Pick was not his fault. Yeah, I don't think it wasn't a great throw. But that's the other thing, too. People are going to kill Zach, and NY Jets floor brings up a good point. The O-line play was inconsistent today. They were great in the run blocking, but the pass blocking left a lot to be desired. And there's so many critical penalties, the Becton false start, the holding penalties. So I just feel like, and again, I agree with King Co. Brees is top 3. I'd put him up in the top 2 right now. When he's on, I don't think there's a better back. Yeah, the 3rd and 5 throw was good. Jacob Klein, Zach, again, it's been inconsistent. Some of them are also out there too. This is from George. Sal screwed AVT again by moving from guard. Sal is a poor head coach. I don't think he screwed AVT. AVT was playing well at the right tackle position. I don't think you can blame the injury on moving him to right tackle. But look, I mean, the Jets also had to get their 5 best offensive linemen out there. And let's put it this way. If you keep him at guard, Joe Tippmann's not in this lineup, and he needs to be. So it stinks, which happens to get there, but it's frustrating. Look, I know that I'm seeing a lot of this in the comments right now. There is a lot there for RJ. This is a chew which for America. Yeah, well, at least Taylor Swift wasn't in the crowd there today to help. So Olberg made good adjustments except on that big touchdown drive. I did not think that was good up there. What's with Big Ticket kept having knee problems. Now, I was having trouble seeing. I couldn't tell if it's his bad knee that was getting banged up or the good knee. But look, he seems fine. The other thing we have to keep in mind a little bit too, I know it's not the perfect science, but the Jets are also coming off playing a Sunday night game. It's a later game into Sunday. This is, even though they played a later game today, it's still a bit of I almost consider if you play the Sunday night game and you have to play anything earlier, it's a bit of a short week. And look, Becton's kind of at a point now where he's played a lot of games in a row. This hasn't been normal for him. He's probably got a little bit of the wear and tear out there, but if he's out there playing, I think that he'll be fine. Bryce Hall's crapped all week, and they was their man there. I mean, Tony, it's ironic. I mean, people want Bryce Hall gone, and he comes up with the big play of the game. I would go step further than NY Jets floor. He better be an all-pro. I mean, he better be an all-pro. And let me put it this way. CJ Mosley's not a Pro Bowler. I think that there's a disconnect. Like, analysts think of CJ one way, the fans think of it another way. I kind of lead a little bit toward the fan side because, again, CJ Mosley, another horrible pass penalty that ruined an opportunity for the Jets to get off the field. Brutal. Jermaine Johnson had a good game. No, I think Jermaine Johnson's really taking a corner. I don't think the Patriots are tanking for the number 1 pick. I love how we're going to that. Although I will say, I did watch the Giants game earlier, and I did lament on Twitter, say, man, this is frustrating watching Jason Pinnock take 102 yards back to the house. I'm like, the Jets could have used him because Payton can play quarter, can play safety. I mean, I praised a lot of Joe Douglas moves, but that was probably one I disagree with a lot. I think Peter Yeti brings up a good point. I can't imagine Tim Boyle is worse than Wilson. Every backup has been better. Look, I think that Zach's played fine. I mean, 4 touchdowns, 5 picks so far this season. Look, I do think let me give Zach credit this. Has Zach been great? No. Is Zach a lot better than he was last year? Absolutely. Zach Wilson does look, and again, I know for a lot of people, well, he was the worst quarterback. I get that. I understand that it's a very, 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 very low bar. But I do see an improvement in Zach this year. I don't think Zach Wilson is going to be great. I think Zach at his peak could be a good starting quarterback, maybe. But I'm looking right now. I mean, Zach compared to last year, I mean, look, The completion percentage is better than it was last year. The turnover percentage is better than it was last year. The yards per attempt, like he is getting better. Now, again, I know where the baseline is. It's not good, but it is better than what you would expect. So, look, the other thing, too, we have to consider as well with some of these injuries with AVT. I'm curious what Dwayne Brown was on the 4-week IR. After next week, he's eligible to return. Could that be a possibility, depending on how long AVT has? But again, AVT is the big one. We have to watch out for that injury. Look, Zach managed the game. I mean, 19 to 26, 199 yards. And I know 199 yards doesn't seem like a lot. I know it technically isn't in the NFL today, but he was efficient. He managed the game. He gave this team a Jets opportunity. Look, he took a 50-50 shot to Garrett Wilson. It was a great play by the corner. Zach Wilson, again, I don't mind the play call, but, it's a situation, too, where I hated that it was picked off. But you give the Jets credit. They took an opportunity there, and they had to. And look, I don't think Zach's going to be great. Like, I think there's a problem with Jet fans where if you talk positive about Zach, you're making him sound like he's going to be the future franchise quarterback. If you talk negative like Zach, you're never going to think. I'm in the middle. I don't think Zach is playing god awful as bad as he's been. Do I think he's going to be the Jets' future quarterback for 10 or 15 years? No. Do I think he's showing improvement? Yes. A lot of things can be true at the same time. Let's see. Alex, definitely heard Sauce stay humble to Payton at the handshake. Yeah, it was a good win because, again, like that, it is funny because everyone talks about the mess the Jets are right now. And I think that you look around the league, I don't think the Jets, for realistically not having their starting quarterback for the year, are in a better situation than a lot of teams right now. And I don't think that they're dysfunctional. I don't think they're a team that's falling apart. Like, I see teams right now around the league falling apart. Yeah, Tony Alexia. We win in Denver, but we also lose. It's like the catch-22. Jets win in Denver, but who do they lose? Yeah, thanks, Charles. Love you as always. Thanks for joining us. Always appreciate you guys being here as well. Yeah. Well, Rex Reinbaugh, they would run the ball 50 more times, apparently. Again, I do think Garrett could have made a play. I thought it was a bit of defensive hold. But look, Zach made enough plays. Zach put him in field goal range. They got all those points because of Zach. Now, could you also say at the same time that Zach could have done better in the red zone? Absolutely. But you can't argue the Jets don't win this game because they moved the football efficiently. They were able to convert. I mean, Breece Hall in the run game was great, but Zach Wilson also had to make plays. Zach Wilson didn't throw 4 interceptions. Zach Wilson didn't give it to the Broncos every other possession. Yeah, Melvin's in here. 25 touch. I don't think they're going to give him 25, but got to be over 20. Got to be over 20. It's got to be over 20. You got to get Izzy involved. Izzy needs to play. Izzy needs to play. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's questionable. He's been absolutely dominant all year this long. Yeah, Cook is cooked. I do think good fantasy team name. I do think Cook was cooked. Yeah, Surtain, I did think was a lot of holding, and even Tiki Barber, who hates the Jets and takes every shot at the Jets or overlooks the Jets. Even Tiki Barber saying, I think Garrett Wilson got held. If Tiki Barber on the broadcast is saying Garrett Wilson got held, he probably got held on that play. So, man, yeah, Melvin brings up a great point, too. I made this comment earlier in the video. If you're joining us just now, I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think this is a very good defense, but I am not going to use the term elite or championship to describe this defense anymore until they prove it. And Melvin gets some point. There are way too many freaking times where this team, how many times have we seen this defense on 3rd and more than 10 allow a first down? Like that drive to potentially get the Broncos off the field. What was it? 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14, and they get 20 freaking yards. There are way too many 3rd and 15. I don't know what the Jets are going to have to do on these because, again, they're rushing 4. Do they play a little bit off and blitz to try to force a quicker throw? Do they try to play a little bit further back and keep anything? I don't know what it is, but these 3rd down and 10s and mores cannot freaking happen anymore. It drives me absolutely nuts. This team will do much better without experienced coach. With an experienced coach, I think you mean. Red flag. I didn't like Zach's game. The later reception was reminiscent of last week's fumble. He's dropping the ball in key moments. Look, if I'm going to, I don't want to fully defend Zach there, but keep it simple, RC. I think the defense dropped the bigger ball the possession before, because the Jets defense that claims they're the 85 Bears and that claims they're this elite unit has an opportunity to get the ball back, end the freaking game, has an opportunity on 3rd and more than 10 to get off the field and end this game. They don't do it. They have an opportunity to get to Russell Wilson. They don't do it. They allow the Broncos to drive the length of the field and score a touchdown. Then they have a 2-point conversion. And wait, the Jets stopped it. Oh, but wait, there's a defensive hole. Then they get the ball and convert the 2. So if anything, yes, Zach, not a great look, but I thought it was more embarrassing look on the defense's part, where we hear so much about how great this defense is, but they have the opportunity to end the game and they let them go down the field. Absolutely great. Garrett is lost in this team. I would like to see him getting the ball a little bit more. Look, Garrett didn't have a huge game, but still 3 catches, 54 yards. Then he get more involved. He needs to get at least 10 targets a game. I do agree with that. Our line run promises elite pass. Yeah, pass pro is not great. Pat, I do think that their strength. I keep saying this. Jets' strength is run blocking. It's not pass blocking. That's going to be the hardest thing with this junior, and I keep thinking about this with this coaching staff, is if this season doesn't end well, what are they going to do, the coaching staff? On the one hand, Woody doesn't have any ties. I could see him getting rid of this coaching staff. But then on the other hand, you have Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers really loves Nathaniel Hackett. And are you going to fire Robert Saleh but keep Nathaniel Hackett? I mean, that's probably going to hurt hiring a head coach if you have to keep the offensive coordinator there. Or do they keep it again and kind of use the excuse, well, Rodgers was hurt, so we have to bring everyone back? And if Aaron Rodgers says, look, I really like Robert Saleh, he's the reason I came here to play, there's a lot to do with that. So AVT, I'm curious to see what happens with AVT. Praying he's okay. You hope the MRI is good this week. I keep saying too, it doesn't even have to be, even if he misses time, I'm fine with that. I just can't have AVT miss the whole year. If AVT has to miss 4 weeks like a Dwayne Brown, and the Jets have to play Dwayne Brown a little bit over 4 weeks. I mean, again, the other thing that helps the Jets is they have a bye. So if he's out 4 weeks, that's 3 games. Can the Jets survive a right tackle with Matt Mitchell? It's a downgrade, but can they survive for 3 weeks? I think they can. I do think they can. How much time is it? Well, Charles, I think this is a very good question, but the problem is the Jets don't have a better option. I mean, even if Simeon gets up to day on the playbook, is he really that much better than Zach Wilson? Is Boyle really that much? I mean, even if Simeon comes in, like, you're basically getting about the same what Zach Wilson's providing right now, maybe an extra touchdown a game, maybe slightly better completion. I mean, it's not like you're getting a huge upgrade, if anything. So I think the Jets are going to try right out with Zach Wilson as long as they can. I think the way they look at this too is they're starting to get the pieces together. Brees is starting to heat up. They have the Eagles coming up, but if they can somehow survive and get to the bye, I think that they're going to feel pretty good about that. Saleh is frustrating as a head coach. I seem like he does much, and what he's responsible for, it's bad. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of Jet fans out there too, and that are frustrated with him. So I do get that there's some frustration. Look, there's things I don't love about Saleh, but look, I think he's going to be here for the long term. And Look, there's things that he does that is a big head scratcher. But at the same time, if we're being partial, I mean, the Jets have also won 2 of 5 games. They're 2-5. Even if they go 2-4 in the first 6 against 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl and a couple playoff teams with a backup quarterback, I do think you have to look at it that way. Draft tackle. I knew AVT was getting injured again. He always gets injured playing tackle, him guard. I don't think the injuries at tackle necessarily come from him playing tackle. It will be an interesting thing. The one thing at AVT at right tackle is it's easier to find a guard. But either way, they're going to have to draft an offensive lineman. I think Breece Hall, I don't know if you got verified there if it's Bryce or Breece. I mean, that's the one thing about the Jets routes that make it freezing. Look, Zach is what he is. He's a backup quarterback. That's why the Jets trade for Aaron Rodgers. He's not a great quarterback. The Jets are just trying to survive with him. That's ridiculous. Bryce Hall maybe gets into the rotation, maybe could start long term eventually, but it's not sauce. I mean, come on. He did great, but I think that's a little much there with Bryce Hall. Yeah, Zach ain't it. He did want to look. Zach, I don't think is the long-term answer. And Melvin brings up a good point. Yeah, he got her in Denver last year. It's a house of freaking horrors for the Jets. NFL schedule, don't put the Jets back in Denver for the love of God, please. Let's see. Totally agree about Cook. Michael Carter should be taking his carries. No, Izzy should be taking those carries. We need Izzy to the freaking hizzy. That's what we need right now. Their defensive line succumbs more because of its depth than its individual talent. Look, the depth definitely played it. They were fresh later in the game, but they still, again, they couldn't get guys off the field. And look, if I'm the Jets, I'm also giving Bryce Huff an extension right now. He's been fantastic this year. Look, I don't think he's retiring. He keeps posting the rehab. He keeps talking about the rehab. He keeps talking about coming back playing this year. I mean, I think he's committed for at least 2 years. 3 might be a stretch, but I don't see any way he's come back. The only way is if they fire this coaching staff and piss him off. Like, that's the only reason I don't think he could be back. And I think keep it similar is a good point. Like, it's hard to judge Saleh because he's had Zach Wilson, and we pretty much know this is the best of Zach Wilson, maybe a high-end backup. How would Saleh look with Aaron Rodgers? Like, can we see how that looks? I mean, you look at how Belichick looked with Mac Jones. I mean, Patriots have gotten embarrassed. And again, I think it's more embarrassing freaking that the Jets now couldn't win that. I mean, it's so freaking frustrating that they couldn't do that. Let's see. I don't know, Melvin. That is a good question. I don't think he was a target line. He almost had the pick at that point. I mean, usually those stats will be compiled tomorrow. But yeah, like Bryce Hall, apparently Rich Cimini pointing out, went to the defense last night. According to Sauce Gardner, he basically said, don't worry, I got this start in the league before. Look, I think he did a very good job out there today. And look, it gives the Jets more depth. I mean, what's wrong about having a corner that, look, he had some bad plays, had the holding in there, but having someone that can step in like that is really important, and having depth, and especially at the cornerback position, is huge for this team. But the Jets get a huge victory in Denver today. Like I said, they had to get to this 2-3 mark, ideally 2-4 by the bye. Hopefully they can maybe upset the Eagles next week. If they can, they'll be in really great shape. Worst case scenario, I still think if they lose the Eagles, they'll be in fine shape, because I think that this team need to be at minimum 2-4 going the bye. I think they're there. AVT will be the big thing to keep on going this week. Although if Max Mitchell has to fill in for a short term, I don't hate that. Zach Wilson, not great, but did enough to win. Breece Hall, the Beast is back. A lot to like about this game, a lot of frustration. But I also think the biggest thing I took out of this game and AVT is uncertain, and once we get an update, we'll provide it with you. We probably won't get that till this week. But the biggest thing about this game is the defense made a play when they needed to. Breece Hall was amazing, and this team was able to find a way to win. This team, the last couple weeks, hasn't been able to find that way to win. They did today, It's important. And my biggest thing, too, is the Jets have some pieces I'd try to trade. I don't think anyone's going to take Dalvin Cook, but Carlos and Mecole Hardman were inactive today. If I'm the Jets, I'm calling. I'm trying to get some draft picks. If they're not going to play, you get value for them because they had over $11 million inactive. I don't think it hurt them today, but I also would look to be active. And Andre Douglas, I'm being active on those phones to try to get other pieces. But again, thanks so much for joining us. If you're joining us after the live stream, make sure to give us a comment. I will answer your questions in the next video. We'll have more updates on AVT throughout this week. We'll do a video about that once we get the update. A lot to talk about with this Jet team, but the biggest thing is the season is still alive. The Jets are 2-3, and we are going to have a lot more to talk about as the season progresses. Make sure you give us a like and a follow here for all the latest and greatest Jets content only here on Rich Sports Talk.